Hi, I'm Jim Turner. Welcome to Chapter 4 of How to Choose the Perfect E-Bike. In Chapter 4, we're going to talk about how to determine the true range of your e-bike. And this is really important. I've seen more people frustrated by buying e-bikes where the ranges were claimed on the spec sheet and they never ever attained that range. And there's a number of factors of why that was true. First off, with e-bikes, there's no standard for range of an e-bike. With cars, the EPA lists the miles per gallon of a car, and that's pretty standardized and you can trust it. With an e-bike, there's no such standard. So every manufacturer can list a range, really whatever they want. Because the other side with an e-bike is if you pedal all the time and never use the motor, the range is infinite. So it's important to really look carefully at what the manufacturers are saying and start looking at some of these points we're going to consider today when choosing your e-bike. So the most important thing in determining your range is the battery size. And earlier we talked about watt hours are the important thing. That's the size of your gas tank. Everything else equal, that's going to determine how far you can go. If you put a bigger battery on the same bike, you're going to go further. That's really simple. Now, the next thing is speed. A lot of those claims we just talked about with manufacturers, they don't list the speed the bike's going at. Wind resistance plays a huge factor as you go faster. It's the square of the speed. So when you go from 10 to 20, it's not twice the power you need, it's 4 times the power. So that's draining your battery at 4 times the rate to go 20 as it is 10. So you need to know how fast do you want to travel at. And people say, well, I don't know. But a lot of people do know because they say, well, I want to commute to work and it's 10 miles and I have 20 minutes, or I say I have 30 minutes to go. So I need to go 20 miles an hour on the average to get there. So that tells you, what kind of speeds you need to travel at. But it is the most critical factor after battery size of what's going to determine how far you can go. The terrain. Now this is important because obviously if you're going up hills all day, you're not going to go as far as you do on the flat. That's just true. And this is one of the hardest things to do because it's hard for someone to call or you talk to them and say, well, what's your hill like? And you can only really go out and do that sometimes. The other is your weight. Now, if you weigh more, you're going to use more energy going up hills. You're also going to be larger, so you can have more frontal mass. There's more wind resistance for you than somebody who's smaller. So depending on your size, it's going to affect your range. And the other is the motor type. We talked previously about the hub motor and the mid-drive. As I said, hub motors tend to be less efficient climbing hills. So if you have a bike with a hub motor, you're doing a lot of hill climbing, it will not go as far even though the battery is the same size. So all these factors add up, and it's really hard to tell, but it's important to be thinking about these things when you go in and compare bikes and before you make a decision. Look at all these factors and don't be misled by just what's on the manufacturer's sheet.